What is going on, everybody? Sports expert here, and we are here for our NFL Power Rankings Week 8. Definitely quite the roller coaster week we've had, as picks didn't go great for most people. A lot of up and down results. So, before we get started, please hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, turn on the post notification bell, like the video, comment what you think about the Power Rankings. Would appreciate everyone's feedback as we get started with this. But yeah, after week 8, let's see how the top 32 shapes up. So at 32, I think it's pretty obvious we have the 0-6 Carolina Panthers. They are coming off a bye week, still trying to find that first win under Frank Reich, and there's a lot of commotion going on around the coaching staff. It sounds like Thomas Brown, the offensive coordinator, will now take over play calling, and there's a lot of chatter of Frank Reich is really the guy over there. Bryce Young has struggled with the small frame he has, it's not too much of a shock he struggled in his rookie year, but definitely going to have to look much better if he wants to be the guy there. Definitely not ideal passing on CJ Stroud. At 31, I have the Arizona Cardinals. They are coming off a 20-10 loss versus the Seattle Seahawks. Just couldn't get much going offensively. Josh Dobbs continues to struggle with passing, and this Cardinals team is just not very complete. It's very incomplete, and Jonathan Gannon has a lot of work to do if he wants to turn it around. Not necessarily his fault. It's a new regime and a very talentless team if you look all over it, but the Cardinals, them being in the bottom is really not a surprise. At 30, we have the Denver Broncos, as they are coming off a nice 19-17 win over the Green Bay Packers. I still have them at 30, though, because they still look very sloppy despite the win. Just not a team that's very well coached and a team that just doesn't have the motivation. So the Broncos are still at the bottom here, but very nice win versus the Packers. At 29, I have the Chicago Bears. They are coming off a win over the Raiders, 30-12. Same with the Bears. They're still a bit of a sloppy team, and although they won 30-12, it's just that a lot of weird injuries in this game, so it's kind of an incomplete game if you really think about it. You don't know what you would have expected from both teams if they were healthy. It was Tyson Bagent versus Brian Hoyer, so not really going to get too excited about the Bears beating Brian Hoyer at home. At 28, I have the Green Bay Packers coming off a 19-17 loss over the Denver Broncos. The offense looks really sloppy. Jordan Love looks very inconsistent. And is Matt LaFleur really the guy for Green Bay? That's got to be a question that we have to ask. It has to be asked, because he just hasn't looked like the type of guy that's ready to take this Packers team where they want to be. He looked pretty off last year, and this season it's not looking great. At 27, we have the Tennessee Titans, as they are coming off a bye week. The Titans, just not a great football team. Ryan Tannehill's injured. We don't know if they'll go with Malik Willis or Will Levis for the foreseeable future, but getting to see both play could be ideal and beneficial to a Titans team that doesn't look like they'll be competing much. At 26, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They are coming off a 30-12 loss versus the Bears, and I have them a few spots over the Bears. Just an incomplete game. You're not going to win much with Brian Hoyer. He's lost 13 straight games, so can't really judge the Raiders off that, and they're still 3-4, so this is a pretty placeable spot for them. But is Josh McDaniels the guy? At 25, we have the Washington Commanders coming off a 14-7 loss versus the Giants. I think we do know who probably isn't the guy for the Commanders, Ron Rivera. He's now a heavy favorite to be the first coach fired. This team's lost 4-5. They're definitely just spiraling a bit. Just bad football around. The offense looks terrible. The offensive line is historically bad, so it doesn't help. At 24, the New York Giants, who beat the Commanders this past week, 14-7. Offense looks much better with Tyrod Taylor, and if they can stay with an identity there, maybe the Giants can rack up a few wins here and go on a bit of a run. Schedule doesn't look as bad as it did at the beginning of the year, too, so that's beneficial. At 23, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are coming off a 16-13 loss versus the Atlanta Falcons. Very sloppy play overall. They're just very poorly coached. I like Todd Bowles, but I just think overall as a coaching staff and him as a head coach, I just don't think it works for the Bucs, because they can win games, but at the same time, they really are limited because of the coaching staff and what they have around them. So Baker Mayfield just not looking too great, but he's not looking horrible. I just don't think the Bucs are a team to look forward to. At 22, we have the Minnesota Vikings. They're playing pretty sloppy this season, but I do feel like they're still a better team than most of these other teams. Kirk Cousins is still having a very good season. Even without Justin Jefferson, there's some upside on offense, so the Vikings have that. They have a really nice head coach in Kevin O'Connell, so maybe the Vikings can make some strides, but I don't know if they can do it versus the 49ers tonight, who are looking to bounce back. 21, I have the New England Patriots. They're coming off a great 29-25 win over the Buffalo Bills. They move up a few spots easily. Mac Jones looked great. Bill Belichick coached a phenomenal game and just outcoached Sean McDermott in all aspects. At 20, I have the Atlanta Falcons. They are coming off the 16-13 win over the Bucs. They should have won by more. They had 3 fumbles in the red zone. Desmond Ridder had a couple, and then just all went downhill from there. I think Desmond Ridder may have had all of them, honestly. Yeah, just very poor performance from the Falcons overall, despite the win. Young Wei Koo bails him out with a game-winning field goal, 51 yards, one of the best in the business. So the Falcons get a win there, but still a lot of questions. At 19, I have the Indianapolis Colts. They are coming off a tough 39-38 loss versus the Cleveland Refs. I am a Cleveland Browns fan, but you got to admit that game was... Someone had a parlay in that game. There's no doubt about that. But Gardner Minshew absolutely torched up the best defense in football. You got to give credit there. If you're a Colts fan, you got to be happy about the outcome despite the loss just because of how good he looked. Josh Downs, a rookie receiver, they absolutely stole in the third round. Went off. I'm not sure how we fell third round, but it happened. And teams are going to be regretting that for a long time. At 18, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. They are coming off a pretty poor loss versus the Chiefs, just outcoached in all aspects, 31-17. Not surprising, though, because Brandon Staley is never going to outcoach Andy Reid, even if you give him 1,000 tries. So, Justin Herbert, incredible football player, but just on a very inept coaching staff. At 17, we have the New Orleans Saints. They are coming off a loss on Thursday Night Football versus the Jaguars. Tried coming back in that game. Tough drop by Foster Moreau and the Saints. So, Saints aren't a bad team, but they're not a team that's probably contending for a Super Bowl this year unless they make miracles happen. But not a poorly coached team, but not a greatly coached team. So, that's where I stand with the Saints. At 16, at the middle of the pack, I have the Los Angeles Rams. They're coming off a 24-17 loss versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another game that was decided by the officials. A team that always gets benefited by the officials is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yeah, that's not too much of a surprise there. When you're playing the Steelers, you have to play against them and the refs. So, but the Rams, it's just... Puka Nacua, that's a positive. He had another big game, but Matthew Stafford struggled immensely in the second half. But the Rams are at the middle of the pack still. At 15, I have the Houston Texans coming off a bye week. C.J. Stroud looking like a top 10 quarterback in football so far this season. And if he can show some consistency, maybe the Texans could possibly sneak in as a surprise playoff team. At 14, I have the New York Jets. They are also coming off a bye week. And Zach Wilson playing with a bit more confidence. I really like how Robert Saleh is leading that team through victory. He's also pro-America, so that helps. Unlike Ron Rivera, who's pro-everything anti-America. So, yeah. But the Jets, I like what I'm seeing from them. The defense looks very solid, of course, and maybe this bye will jolt them even more. At 13, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off the 24-17 win over the Los Angeles Rams. They're 4-2, but at the same time, I just don't know if I can trust this coaching staff going forward. I mean, I trust Mike Tomlin, but you still have Matt Canada. Matt Canada probably called one of his best games ever yesterday, but it's just one game. We'll see what the Steelers do going forward, but good win yesterday, but needed some help from the officials to get it. At 12, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. They are coming off a bye week. Still have a lot of potential for this team, despite being 3-3 and looking sloppy. But maybe they'll turn it around a bit now. Now they've won a couple in a row, and Zach Taylor will get his guys going off the bye week. At 11, I have the Detroit Lions coming off a horrible 38-6 loss versus the Baltimore Ravens. They go on the road, face a big test, absolutely fall flat on their faces. Dan Campbell should be ashamed of himself for this. Although I don't think he's the main problem. I do think Jared Goff, a guy that a lot of people are talking about as a possible guy for the Lions for the foreseeable future, these are the games where he needs to show up. Even if he loses, he needs to show up a bit. He didn't show up at all. I was pretty poor by Jared Goff, and honestly, if I'm Brad Holmes, I'm studying quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft. I mean, Jared Goff, does he have the mental capacity, attitude to take the Lions to the next step? Maybe, but we got to see more. I mean, to lose 30, I mean, I understand maybe losing like 38-30, but 38-6, come on. What are we doing here? Just, I mean, Jared Goff's play didn't help the defense either. Just tired, had to keep going on the field, and you don't want the Ravens facing a tired defense. They will absolutely annihilate you because of Lamar Jackson's legs. At 10, I have the Seattle Seahawks coming off a 20-10 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Just a very solid game overall for the Seahawks. It wasn't pretty early on, but they were able to get it done pretty easily later in the game, and Pete Carroll did his thing. He did his thing. Geno Smith was fine. Jackson Smith and Jigba, shout out to him for his career touchdown. At 9, I have the Miami Dolphins. They are coming off a pretty poor road loss versus the Eagles. Same with the Dolphins. Can they show up on the road against good teams too? Can they even show up against good teams? The Dolphins are a team that I just don't know at this point. They have the talent, but at the same time, do they have the adaptability, or do they have the ineptability? We don't know, but the Dolphins have to be better. At 8, we have the Buffalo Bills coming off a tough loss versus the Patriots, but that was just an absolute masterclass from Bill Belichick. I mean, the Bills are still one of the better teams in football despite that loss. And will they turn it around? More than likely. Josh Allen will find a way, but the Bills, we'll see what they can do. I mean, maybe they're limited with Sean McDermott as head coach, but still a very good football team. At 7, I have the Dallas Cowboys coming off a bye week. We'll see if Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn can get that team going, see if that defense can stay intense. The Cowboys are going to need it. They will be coming off the bye 4-2. Very good football team, but it's a lot of weird games too so far. Getting blown out by the 49ers and losing to Arizona. So they're going to have to clean that up a bit. At 6, we have the Cleveland Browns coming off a 39-38 win over the Colts, or you could say the refs. But, yeah, Deshaun Watson hurt again. We don't know what's up with him. Kevin Stefanski says day-to-day, but Deshaun Watson doesn't know himself. P.J. Walker didn't play great, but he was able to make some nice throws. We'll see who starts next week versus Seattle, but very encouraging by the Browns. Myles Garrett went absolutely bonkers. At 5, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming off a 31-24 win on Thursday Night Football versus the New Orleans Saints. Trevor Lawrence stayed poised despite having a knee injury. I believe it was a sprained knee. He played really well. I believe he had 59 rushing yards, which is the most in his career in a game. And he did that with a sprained knee. Got to be impressed with that. The Jaguars' defense looks very improved. There's a lot of guys that have really taken a step forward there. So got to give credit to the defensive staff and everybody there. So Doug Peterson doing a hell of a job in Jacksonville, and we'll see what they can do going forward in an easy division. At 4, we had the Philadelphia Eagles coming off that big win versus the Dolphins. Nick Sirianni coached a hell of a game. It wasn't pretty from Jalen Hurts, but he was able to make plays throughout the end of the game, and he was able to settle in. Still a very good quarterback, despite not having the best reads, but the Eagles team has a high ceiling. At 3, we have the San Francisco 49ers. They're coming off the loss versus the Browns, but they do play Monday Night Football tonight. I believe they'll bounce back, but one thing I did want to mention about the 49ers is, can this team win a Super Bowl? Is this team limited under Kyle Shanahan? Kyle Shanahan has made a couple Super Bowls, but he hasn't won one. Is he a guy that can win a Super Bowl? Can they win a Super Bowl with a system with Kyle Shanahan? We'll see, but the 49ers still have a lot of upside. Steve Wilkes is doing a hell of a job. Been a very good defensive coordinator throughout his whole career. At number 2, we have the Baltimore Ravens coming off a 38-6 win over the Detroit Lions. A hell of a win for Lamar Jackson and company. Lamar Jackson might just be the best quarterback in football outside of the dude from Kansas City. So I think we all know what's going on there. John Harbaugh doing a hell of a job with his staff, and the Ravens are having a great season so far. Some games haven't looked great, but you got to admit they look like one of the better teams. And at 1, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, who started the season 0-1 versus the Lions, but have won 6 straight ever since. The Taylor Swift effect is real, guys. It's making Travis Kelce go bonkers, and Andy Reid obviously coaching a hell of a game each week. So got to give props to the Chiefs there. They're doing what they can, and they look like a favorite once again. And they will continue to be favorites as long as the Mahomes and Reid duo are there. Appreciate everyone being here. Sports Expert, please hit the subscribe button to the channel. Turn on the post notification bell. Like the video. Comment what you think. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm out, guys. Sports Expert here. Peace.